The discovery. The starship Artemis drifted silently through the void, its sleek hull gleaming under the light of distant stars. Captain Alina Reyes stood on the bridge, her dark eyes scanning the holographic displays that surrounded her command chair. The Artemis was 6 months into its mission to chart the Cygnus Expanse, a previously unexplored region at the edge of human-controlled space. "Captain, I'm picking up something unusual," said Lieutenant Maya Chen, her fingers dancing across the sensor console. "It's a signal, definitely artificial, repeating on a frequency I've never seen before." Commander Jackson Davis, the ship's XO, moved to stand beside Chen. His weathered face creased with curiosity. "Source: It's coming from a planet in the nearby Ta Ceti system, about 2 days' journey at standard speed." Captain Rice straightened, feeling the familiar tingle of anticipation that came with potential first contact. Humanity had encountered 3 alien species since achieving faster-than-light travel 60 years ago. All had been pre-spaceflight civilizations, primitive compared to Earth's technological advancement. "Dr. Curry," she called to the ship's xenolinguist, "what do you make of this?" Dr. Samira Kauri, a brilliant linguist with specializations in both terrestrial and extraterrestrial communication patterns, studied the visual representation of the signal. "It's unlike anything in our database, Captain. It contains mathematical sequences that suggest intelligence, but the structure—" She paused, frowning. "It feels ancient." "Ancient?" Rides asked. "The signal degradation pattern indicates it's been broadcasting for a very long time. Thousands of years, possibly." Reyes made her decision. Lieutenant Chen, set course for the signal's origin. Commander Davis, prepare an away team. Let's find out who's been calling for so long. The Artemis arrived at the planet 2 days later. From orbit, it appeared lifeless, a gray, barren world with shallow seas and no visible vegetation. The signal originated from a massive structure on the surface, clearly artificial and resembling a sprawling complex of interconnected domes and towers. The away team consisted of Captain Rice, Dr. Curry, Security Chief Lieutenant Commander Victor Okafor, and Chief Engineer Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka. They descended to the surface in a shuttle, landing near the structure. The atmosphere was thin but breathable, the gravity slightly lighter than Earth's. "No life signs," Okafor reported, scanning the area. "No movement, nothing but the signal." As they approached the structure, they found an entrance, a vast doorway that opened automatically at their approach. Inside, darkness greeted them, broken only by the beams of their flashlights. "The architecture is unlike anything I've seen," Dr. Tanaka murmured, running his hand along a wall covered in unfamiliar symbols. "The materials are not in our database." They proceeded deeper into the structure, finding vast chambers filled with strange machinery. In what appeared to be a central control room, Dr. Tanaka managed to activate a power source. Lights flickered on, and holographic displays appeared, showing unfamiliar star charts and diagrams. The signal stopped. Chen's voice came through their comms. "The moment you activated the power, it ceased broadcasting." Dr. Kauri approached a central console. "It was waiting for someone to answer," she said softly. After all this time, over the next hours, Dr. Kauri worked to decipher the alien language using the ship's AI and her own expertise. The others explored the facility, discovering what appeared to be living quarters, laboratories, and most disturbingly, what Okafor identified as defensive weapon emplacements. "These are military-grade energy weapons," he reported, "far beyond our technology. Whatever built this place was preparing for war." When they regrouped in the control room, Dr. Curry's face was pale. "I've translated enough to understand what happened here," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "They called themselves the Arcanians. They were a peaceful, advanced civilization that spanned dozens of star systems in this region." "Were?" Rise asked. "They were systematically wiped out by another species they called the Devourers." Kauri manipulated the controls, bringing up a holographic image of a massive, insectoid creature with multiple limbs and a carapace that seemed to absorb light. The devourers don't seek territory or resources in the conventional sense. They consume all advanced technology and sentient life, breaking them down to their base elements and incorporating them into their collective. A hive mind, Tanaka suggested. More like a technological parasite with a collective consciousness, Kaori corrected. They destroyed the Arcanians centuries ago, but before the end, the last survivors built this facility. It contains their complete history, scientific knowledge, and most importantly, warnings about the devourers, including their weaknesses. Okafor asked. Yes, the Arcanians discovered vulnerabilities in the devourer biology and technology, but too late to save themselves. They left this knowledge hoping another species would find it and succeed where they failed. Captain Rice studied the star charts. Where are these devourers now? Dr. Kaori manipulated the controls again, bringing up a trajectory that cut across the galaxy. The Arcanians tracked their movement pattern. They're methodical, moving from one system to another, never deviating from their path. She looked up, her eyes meeting Reyes. Captain, according to these calculations, the devourers will reach Earth in approximately 18 months. Silence fell over the group as the implications sank in. Could their calculations be wrong? Commander Davis asked. It's been centuries. The Arcanians were far more advanced than us, Dr. Tanaka said. Their predictive algorithms would account for variables we can't even comprehend. If they said 18 months, I believe them. Captain Rice straightened, her decision already made. Download everything. Every bit of data in this facility. We're taking it all back to Earth. As they worked, Rice stood at a viewport, looking out at the barren landscape that had once been home to a thriving civilization. We'll finish what you started, she promised the ghosts of the Arcanians. We won't let them do to us what they did to you. The return journey to Earth was tense. The Artemis pushed to its limits as they raced against time. When they finally reached Earth, Captain Rice faced the combined leadership of the United Earth Defense Council. This is speculative at best, General Wei said after their presentation. You're asking us to mobilize Earth's entire military based on a message from an extinct alien race. The evidence is conclusive, Dr. Kaori insisted. The devourers have destroyed at least 7 advanced civilizations. Their pattern is consistent. They're coming. Admiral Hernandez, head of the Space Fleet, leaned forward. If what you're saying is true, we have 18 months to prepare for an enemy that has successfully wiped out species more advanced than our own. What exactly do you propose we do, Captain? We use the Arcanian technology, Rice said firmly. Their weapons designs, their shield technology, their knowledge of devourer weaknesses. We have the advantage they didn't. Time to prepare. After heated debate, the Council agreed to send probes to verify the threat. 3 weeks later, when the probes returned with images of lifeless worlds stripped of all technology and organic matter, exactly as the Arcanian data had predicted, Earth mobilized for war. Dr. Tanaka led efforts to adapt Arcanian technology to human ships. Dr. Kaori worked with military strategists to understand devourer tactics. Captain Rice was promoted to admiral and given command of Earth's defensive fleet. All across the planet, factories were repurposed to build weapons and ships, resources were redirected to the war effort, and humanity prepared to fight for its survival. As the months passed, the first deep space monitoring stations detected the approach of the devourer fleet, massive organic-looking vessels that moved with eerie coordination through the darkness of space. Humanity watched and waited, leveraging every bit of Arcanian knowledge to prepare for the coming storm. The response. 16 months after the discovery of the Arcanian outpost, Earth had transformed. The formerly peaceful planet now bristled with defense platforms, and the shipyards in Earth orbit and on Mars worked around the clock, producing vessels equipped with weapons reverse-engineered from Arcanian technology. Admiral Elena Rice stood in the command center beneath Geneva, watching as technicians monitored the approaching devourer fleet. The enemy had entered the outer solar system 3 days ago. their massive biomechanical ships moving with precision toward Earth. "Status report," she ordered. Commander Davis, now her second-in-command, stepped forward. "The civilian evacuation to the shelters is at 97%. The orbital defense grid is fully operational. Fleet deployment is complete." Dr. Tanaka approached, his once neat appearance now disheveled from months of non-stop work. "The final modifications to the flagship's primary weapon are complete. If the Arcanian calculations are correct, it should disrupt the Devourer's collective consciousness." "And if they're not?" Rise asked quietly. Tanaka met her gaze steadily. "Then we've done everything we possibly could." The first engagement occurred near Jupiter's orbit. A small squadron of Earth's fastest ships, led by Lieutenant Commander Okafor, made contact with the Devourer advanced scouts. The battle was brief but significant, humanity's first real test of Arcanian-derived technology. "Enemy vessels detected," Okafor reported, his voice calm despite the circumstances. 5 scout ships, approaching at high velocity. "Weapons hot," he ordered his squadron. "Remember your training. Target their neural nodes as identified in the Arcanian data." The human ships moved in formation, their new shields glowing as they absorbed the first energy blasts from the Devourer scouts. The return fire was precise, concentrated beams of energy that struck specific points on the Devourer vessels, points the Arcanians had identified as critical junctions in the Hive's neural network. 2 of the scout ships immediately went dark, their systems disrupted. A third veered off course, its movements erratic. The remaining 2 adjusted quickly, their attacks becoming more focused and deadly. "They're adapting," Okafor warned as one of his ships exploded. "Fall back to secondary positions." The squadron retreated, but not before destroying 3 of the 5 Devourer scouts. The 2 remaining scouts pursued them toward Mars, where a larger human fleet waited in ambush. On Earth, Admiral Rise received the battle reports with mixed emotions. "We've confirmed the Arcanian data was accurate," she told the Defense Council. "The Devourer's neural nodes are vulnerable to our targeted energy weapons, but they adapt quickly, as predicted." "What about their main fleet?" General Wei asked. "Still advancing. The scout engagement hasn't deterred them." Rise pointed to the tactical display. "They'll reach Earth in approximately 72 hours. The next engagement came at Mars. The Devourer fleet had grown, with the 2 surviving scouts having been joined by a dozen larger vessels. The battle was fierce, with heavy losses on both sides. Humanity's superior knowledge of Devourer weaknesses was partially offset by the aliens' ability to adapt and their sheer destructive power. Dr. Curry, who had been analyzing Devourer communication patterns, made a breakthrough during the Mars battle. "They're not just adapting tactically," she reported to Admiral Reyes. "They're evolving their entire communication system to counter our attacks. If this continues, our advantage will diminish with each engagement." "Then we need to end this before that happens," Rice decided. "Prepare the Prometheus." The Prometheus was Earth's newest and largest warship, built around a massive energy weapon derived from Arcanian designs. Its purpose was not to destroy Devourer ships individually, but to generate a cascading disruption that would sever the connections within their collective consciousness, effectively rendering them mindless and vulnerable. As the main Devourer fleet approached Earth, humanity's defenses stood ready. Orbital platforms, ground-based weapons, and the combined fleets of all Earth nations waited in formation. At the center of the defense was the Prometheus, with Admiral Reyes on the bridge. "They're here," Commander Davis announced as the Devourer fleet emerged from Lightspeed, a swarm of dark ships that seemed to absorb the very light around them. "All vessels, maintain position," Reyes ordered. "Let them come to us." The Devourers approached methodically, their formation shifting and adapting based on their analysis of previous encounters. Their first attack targeted Earth's communication satellites, attempting to disrupt coordination between defense forces. "They're learning," Dr. Cowrie observed, "trying to separate us so they can pick us off individually, just as they did with the Arcanians." "Not this time," Rais said firmly. Activate secondary communication protocols. Earth's forces switched to a backup system designed specifically for this scenario, maintaining their coordinated defense. The Devourer fleet split into multiple attack groups, targeting different sections of Earth's defenses simultaneously. The battle was brutal. Earth's orbital platforms fell one by one, sacrificing themselves to weaken the enemy. Human ships engaged at close range, targeting the neural nodes identified in the Arcanian data. For every human vessel destroyed, they managed to disable or destroy multiple Devourer ships. But the aliens kept coming, their numbers seemingly endless. Prometheus status. Rais demanded as her flagship shuddered under enemy fire. Primary weapon at 98% charge, Chief Engineer Tanaka reported. But our shields are failing. We need another 10 minutes to reach full power. We don't have 10 minutes, Davis warned, pointing to the tactical display where dozens of Devourer ships were converging on their position. All remaining vessels, converge on the Prometheus, Rais ordered. Form a defensive perimeter. We need to buy time. What followed was perhaps the most heroic stand in human history. Outnumbered and outgunned, Earth's remaining ships formed a protective barrier around the Prometheus, sacrificing themselves one by one to keep the flagship safe until its weapon could be deployed. Lieutenant Commander Okafor's voice came through the comms, his ship one of the few still fighting. We can't hold them much longer. Admiral. Just a little more time. Rais pleaded, watching as the weapon charge indicator slowly climbed toward completion. At that moment, a massive Devourer vessel broke through the defensive perimeter, bearing down on the Prometheus. Its biomechanical form pulsed with energy as it prepared to fire. 99%. Tanaka called out. We're almost there. Evasive maneuvers, Davis ordered, but it was too late. The Devourer ship fired, its energy beam striking the Prometheus directly. Systems failed across the ship, lights flickered, and for a moment, it seemed all was lost. Then, Dr. Curry noticed something unexpected. The impact. It completed the energy circuit. The weapon is at full charge. Fire, Rais commanded. The Prometheus's primary weapon activated, sending a pulse of energy unlike anything humans had ever generated before. The pulse wasn't destructive in the conventional sense. Instead, it carried a specifically modulated frequency that targeted the quantum entanglement the Devourers used to maintain their hive mind. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Across the battlefield, Devourer ships suddenly lost coordination. Some went completely dark, while others began moving erratically, colliding with each other or firing randomly into space. It's working, Dr. Corey whispered, watching the sensor readings. Their collective consciousness is fragmenting. As the disruption spread throughout the Devourer fleet, Earth's remaining forces regrouped and counterattacked. Without their hive mind to coordinate their actions, the individual Devourer ships were vulnerable, their adaptability severely compromised. The battle turned rapidly. Within hours, the once mighty Devourer fleet was reduced to scattered, disorganized vessels that were systematically destroyed or disabled by Earth's forces. Some attempted to retreat, but they were pursued and eliminated. In the aftermath, Admiral Rais stood on the observation deck of the damaged Prometheus, looking out at Earth, battered but unbroken. The planet had suffered. Orbital infrastructure was heavily damaged. Millions had died in the fighting, but humanity had survived. You know, they'll come again, Commander Davis said quietly, joining her at the viewport. The Arcanians' data suggests the Devourers are just one arm of a larger collective. And we'll be ready, Rais replied. We've learned from the Arcanians. We'll continue to adapt their technology, improve our defenses, and we'll find the other civilizations out there who've also been fighting this war. Dr. Cowrie approached, holding a data tablet. I've been analyzing the fragments of Devourer communication we captured during the battle. There are references to other collectives, other hive minds, scattered throughout the galaxy. Potential allies? Rais asked. Possibly, or at least others who share our interest in survival. As they spoke, reports came in from across the solar system. Human ships were securing the remaining Devourer vessels for study. Earth's cities were beginning reconstruction efforts. And most importantly, scouts were being prepared to seek out other civilizations that might have encountered the Devourers. The Arcanians waited thousands of years for someone to answer their call, Admiral Ray said, watching as Earth rotated below them, damaged but alive with light and movement. They couldn't save themselves, but they saved us. Now it's our turn to carry that responsibility forward. The last signal that had summoned humanity's wrath had done more than just warn of a terrible enemy. It had united Earth as never before and propelled humans from an isolated species to guardians of the galaxy. The Devourers had awakened humanity's fury, but they had also ignited humanity's determination to protect not just themselves, but all sentient life from the darkness that sought to consume it.